I started with Drupal about 2 years ago and fought tooth and nail for almost every day at that time to be able to build sites that do what I want them to do without having to rely on too many people, too many developers, other than the ones whose modules and work appears in Contrib, and to develop themes that enable me to display my work, also without having to go too far out of my own little circle to get there. And what I'm finding out after having spent a career of essentially doing this on a number of different levels is that in order to function in this very unusual place where themers live, it needs to have a certain amount of understanding of two very different worlds, and those worlds are the visual world and the world of code.
Did you bring a laptop?
Yeah, but I don't have a presentation. This is going to be verbal, and hopefully I'm going to get some discussion going and pass along some tips that I've developed over the past couple of years that really help people who are in a state where I can work Dreamweaver, I can build a little HTML site, I can make a couple of links work and send a piece of mail or make an image show up on a website, to someone who can get into a Drupal site and say, I want to build a theme, I want this to do, to create a view, to make something that looks good and is basically code sound, is well coded. And part of what I want to do is I want to address people who are developers to understand what the job of a visual person is, because I think there's a huge gap in the community where you've got people who are developing modules and they're throwing things out of those modules that are basically, in a lot of cases, unnecessary or unwanted, or should be, in a lot of cases, optional, where the themers and the people using the sites should be able to turn them off. And a lot of the time that I spend as a themer is getting things not to show up, because I find that Drupal has a lot of things that show up by default, and it's hard to get rid of them. So I think that there are people who are doing Contrib, people who are developers, need to understand what the job of the themer is and what the job of the the designer and what the client is expecting to see in a visual sense. And to accomplish that, I think that some of the developers need to understand what themers go through and what clients are looking for, and how that relates to what they build in terms of code. Now, I started out in doing digital graphics. Well, probably most of you were in grade school at that point, but the bottom line is that at the time that PostScript came out, I was involved in a company that was doing basically PostScript development and what was called desktop publishing at the time. And I used to give demos because we had a very early facility that merged PostScript typography and scanned images, and were able to put it on a piece of film to make a printing plate out of it. And I had a customer come down and wanted a demonstration, and the demonstration that I gave showed taking a photographic image, scanning it, bringing it into a page, adding PostScript typography, and putting it out as a single file and imaging it. And by the end of the demo, the client was laughing hysterically. And I couldn't understand why, and I kept on with my demo, and my client is laughing and laughing. Finally, I stopped. I said, "What's so funny? Did I spill my lunch on my shirt? Is someone behind me doing something?" And the thing that they thought was really funny was the fact that I had created a paradigm where graphic people were going to use computers to put together page layouts. sites. And he found this totally hysterical. And the bottom line is that in one way he was not terribly wrong, is that the visual skills needed to create good-looking communications are not necessarily those that you will find with text editing, with programming, with digital, with people who are well versed with digital tools. I can look at sites and I can tell you which ones a visual person was involved in the creation of, and which one coders got together and said, this is a great idea for a site, let's put all this code together and make it work. And yeah, you browse to that page, you do get the context or the content that you need, but the context is just completely broken. And that's because there's little communication between the coding side of it, the developer side of it, and the theming side of it, and the people who can cross from one environment to the other are few and rare and generally highly skilled people. But that's not to say that that's something that you can't develop in yourself, that you can't aspire to, that you can't make work just for the sake that you walk into a client's office and that client says to you, I don't want to see this. And you can say, okay, fine, you write it down. And when they come back from lunch, you've got that straightened out and they don't have to see this, or they want to see it differently, or in a different color, or it should show up on every page, whatever their issues are, because that's what this business is for most people on any given day.
Make the logo bigger.
Make the logo bigger, there you go. I don't like the background color. I like the background color on this page, but not on the other 3 pages. Whatever their issue is, that this is in many aspects what drives the use of Drupal, what drives the use of the web, is that people want to express their identity, their presence in a way that is individual to them and distinctive to them, and many of them have very specific ideas about it that at no point can a developer that far in the future determine that that's what's going to happen, but there you are on that particular day. And you've got a client going, I need to see it this way, it's not there, and some days if you're a developer you may have to be the themer, and some days if you're the themer you may have to be the developer. And that's what needs to happen in real world Drupal, unless you're at a company where you've got that resource and you're the developer and you know that the themer is down the hall or vice versa. So what the issue is here is, as a visual person, what do you need to know to make your Drupal experience work? The basic items that you have to get familiar with, obviously, are CSS, which is where a lot of your typography and page layout lives. And that's something that you're not going to, if you're used to things like InDesign and so forth, you're going to have issues because you're not working with a user-friendly system that has drop-downs and that has little text fields where you put it in and it changes immediately, and you can preview it. But there are ways to do that in Drupal. Most of them live in CSS. In order to be an effective themer, you have to learn PHP. Now, you don't have to be a PHP expert, but you do have to learn enough to backtrack out what's going on your page to be able to say, to be able to get closer to the code or the specific instance that's calling the information that you now want to modify. So you have to learn how to become a bit of a detective and be able to take that initiative and to to backtrack what's causing it and find a way to call it in CSS and say, this is what's creating this, and I want to change the typography. Now, one of the techniques that I've found that's worked for me, and I think that the entire community would benefit from it, is if you're a themer and you want help with PHP, you're very likely going to find that the IRC channels have a lot of people who are very knowledgeable and are a great resource. How do you get them to talk to you? One of the most important things that you have to be able to do as a themer is to be able to use the vocabulary of the developer, so the developer can say, yeah, I'll be happy to answer that question. You've phrased it in a way that I can work with. So one of the most important things, one of the most difficult things that I see in the IRC chats is people coming on demanding answers for questions that nobody can really understand, and that's a problem. You've got to give enough information so that the person understands the question that you're asking, and enough information in the context of where your question is generated from to be able to help you with an answer. Yes, John?
Example.
Example?
Example.
Or even better, are there particular sites, either IRC channels or websites, or email lists that one can monitor to learn the nomenclature?
Yeah, well, Drupal.org has all the nomenclature there.
Yeah.
But it's a daunting task because what you want to do is you want to be able to look things up, find out where you're falling down, and then if you need to ask somebody, take it there. So obviously the first place to go is to look up something on Drupal.org. And I found 50% of the time, if I start drilling down through links, I'll find it. But you asked for an example, and the example is things like arrays, things like variables that are in, say, template PHP. It takes a while for people to find out that $ content is going to throw as much as it does onto the screen. $ links is going to throw as much as it does onto the screen, and you're going to want to say that you're going to want to put that context out to the developers and say this is where your problem is coming in, and that's the first part that you're going to need to do to get some answers, is to learn the nomenclature. You're, as an artist or as a designer in this, as a designer trying to make a Drupal site, you're like a tourist in a foreign country. Okay, fine, people be nice to you. Yeah, they want you to pay your bill, but you're part of you're in a place, and if you speak their language, they're going to be able to help you better. It's like for me being in France. I can't speak a word of French, but little by little, I'll pick up a few phrases from the cab driver, a few phrases from the waiter, a few phrases from the maitre d' at the hotel, and all of a sudden I can just about manage my day. And over a number of weeks, I'll find myself chatting with people, and I'll find myself getting the information that I need. And that's the world as a designer that you're in when you're trying to theme and develop an interface for a Drupal site, which is the more you use the terminology, and even if you make a mistake, to push forward and persevere through it, because the more you learn that vocabulary, the more you can communicate, the better the answers will be, and the more clear your next problems, issues become, and that's what makes all of this work. So you're doing half the work that you need to do to get your answer by expressing your question and your issues clearly to someone who can help you out. Now, on the flip side, I've had a couple of developers say to me, I don't understand a lot of this theming stuff. And the part of theming that they're not understanding is the CSS, some of the typography, and for the most part, the aesthetics of the site. And what I like to recommend to people in that situation is to pick things that you like to see and deconstruct them. So if you go to a site and you think, wow, this is the most well-designed site in the world, and even if you're a themer, you visit that site, you go in there, you can open Firebug, you can see a lot of what's going on to produce that visual effect that you like, and you can use that. And I call it borrowing. Don't think of it as stealing. You want to go ahead and try to do things that other people have done that work, and that's where you learn how to make those next themes and those next pages that you're going to do work, is by understanding what's gone into other pages to make them work. I see a lot of sites with very strange color schemes, very weird layouts with huge visual holes in the middle, or type that's unreadable. Half of design is making things that people can use, and when you don't use color schemes, page layouts, spacing, conventional things like going from a title to a subhead to an author name to the text, to putting a link on it that people expect to see, then you get it. Then, as a developer, you get into trouble on the theming side. So you want to take a look at what is on a site that works and why it works. If you're a themer, you're going to want to start to do that and find out what where your coding breaks down, where your understanding breaks down, and that's where you can look that up on Drupal.org. There's W3 Schools has a huge amount of tutorials for CSS, for HTML, and pull from those to be able to control what you want to show on that page. The part of Drupal that makes themers that is the biggest hill for a theme, or the biggest hurdles for themers to get over, is, in my opinion, the PHP. I've gone through any number of modules with developers and said, why does this do this? Why does that do that? And gotten answers that have been very illuminating and helped me through other issues to be able to understand what Drupal and PHP do together. Because you can read a lot of books on Drupal, you can read a lot of books on PHP until you've interacted with them and made them work. That's what gels the knowledge, in my opinion, is that you can take something, examine it, break it, reconstruct it, try it, and then and see what the result is, and if you can get a result that works for you. The other thing is that what I'm finding is that the visual side of Drupal and the code side of Drupal are in many ways separated by a wall. And the wall is, you're a themer, you make things look good. I'm a developer, I make things work, and we live in different worlds. And it's true. I find most of the developers that I know are incredibly creative people. They work within a different set of rules than themers or designers who are also incredibly creative people whose just your rule system is different and your procedures are different. A themer or a designer starts out with a vision and tries to implement that vision, whereas a developer will start out with a problem that they're trying to solve and work within that framework. It's pretty hard to develop visually without a vision, or to develop a solution without a problem. So you've got to work within that within that constraint, and when you come in without those two basic elements, everybody's kind of left not knowing what to do next. One of the things that I found very helpful for me is in learning how to theme was to try and use my visual skills as a means of opening up discussions and interactions with developers, as if to say, you know, I need some help now and then with some code or some advice or some help in problem solving, and maybe they need something where you can help theme for them. And that, in my opinion, is a great way for both sides to bridge that gap and to be able to say, hey, I've developed something, but I have no idea how to make it look good, and I can make this look good for you, but can I bother you for a question now and then? And I really think that those kind of cooperatives, those type of cooperative efforts, are going to create the best possible world for both parties, for themers and for developers, because you'll both have access to each other's knowledge bases and points of view. And when you go off the track and you need somebody to help you, whether it's visually or code-wise, it's good to have a friend, a community, a place where you can go and get the information that you need. And nobody, no one person knows everything, and everybody needs help now and then. And those are the things that you do: is you reach out, and in some cases, graphics people do what the contrib people are doing, which is donating their skills a little bit to the community, and let that be your way of helping someone out who's got now a site or something that they have less than what they'd like to see on that page. So, yeah.
So what do you mean as a way for a designer to contribute to the community outside of like contributing an entire theme?
Outside of contributing an entire theme, there was a theme sprint that went on here yesterday that where people were asked to build Photoshop comps of different pages in the new Drupal redesign, which is a great way to open up new contacts and let people know that you're willing to help out and that you have those skills to bring forward. If you have a local user group, you can offer to do graphics for the site and images. I at one point designed a sticker for the New York group. I'm trying to get a little graphic for the Drupal camp that we put on up in front of the group. Not that this is all the end all of this, but the bottom line is that I now have people that when I talk to them, they go, oh, I know who you are. And yeah, that was a really nice piece of work. And yeah, sure, you need 2 lines of code, no problem, because the 2 lines of code that they might do for me and the little Photoshop graphic that I might do for them is just an amenity. Maybe it takes them 10 or 15 or 20 minutes out of their day to help you with your code, and now they've got something on their site, because none of them are going to sit and design a graphic, but they like having an artist around to do that. That's, yes, John.
Another thing is that you have to realize, I sit next to Andrew Levine, who's just graduated from school and pretty brilliant. And I look at him, he just lives in the C prompt all day long. He never touches a mouse. And he looks over at me and he said the other day, I can't, how do you do what you do? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I tested in IE6 and you gotta do all the stuff, and you're always in the graphics. He said, I couldn't do that. So you have to understand that in their world, what we do is completely strange. No, he's programming.
Yeah,
he's working database.
text files.
He's hard level programming, doing some serious wicked stuff. I mean, he's like, does anybody care if I delete 2 million rows in a database? I'm like, you're doing it. you know, but he's just in there and writing.
Is this Unix?
It's all Drupal.
No, I mean, you said C program, it's not DOS, is it?
I don't know, what did we use?
Ugh.
I think the point
The point
point is
is
the
that-
detail. You're getting mired in the details. The point is that everyone has their own specialties.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they also, this is what I'm saying to what Charles was just saying. You know, if you see a module that you don't understand or try to enable, if something you do is just really weird, contact the person who made it, the developer. The thing about it is that they need your help as much as we need their help. And often, you know, it's very apparent that we need their help because it seems so robust, but they're really most shy and they're not like really able to communicate a lot of things too visually. So if you could say, you know, hey, listen, see this is presenting a problem, could you blah, 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 or I can design this portion of this stuff for you, then they say, yeah, sure, and then that is a relationship. So it goes both ways. Don't think that developers can just wake up and be themers, which is usually what people assume, that, you know, every developer is going to bang out a theme. If that was the case, we'd have beautiful sites like WordPress. That's not the case at all. So
No.
they need our help as much as they did.
Developers are not going to wake up tomorrow and be themers, and designers are not going to wake up tomorrow and be developers. But what you want to try to do is communicate the details and the particulars of each of your disciplines to each other in order to get the other person's point of view, because that's the learning process. And that happens the same way whether you have visual skills or whether you have developmental skills. You need to communicate what's important to you, what makes your job harder or easier, and what makes your projects work to the other side of the fence, so that the developers can learn over time what the themers expect to see, what the clients expect to see, why these things are important to the next people on the chain, on the food chain, and vice versa. As a designer or a graphics person, you need to talk to them and find out what's going on in their world and inside of their arrays and their PHP statements and their database calls, database queries, and so forth. To be effective, you need to walk across that boundary and visit them. And to do that, to entice them to talk to you and say, all right, here's that guy. Well, he's a good guy. You know, he did this, and that was a help, as a way of extending the olive branch, reaching out and saying, is there something that I can help you with? Do you need something visually, graphically? Do you need you want me to fix your avatar? You know, your avatar looks a little sad. Maybe we can do something with that. You do that, and you make a friend with a developer. And the same thing I encourage developers to do is to get into a conversation with a themer, because at that point, or a designer, because at that point you now have somebody who you can communicate with, who can communicate with you, who can use what you have to offer. And when you go to them, and it's something where, because I liken this a lot to speaking a foreign language. When I look at code, I'm reading the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I have to go, this little squiggle means this squiggle means that. Okay, let's see if I could string it out into something that at the end of it, something happens or a meaning is transferred. Well, if you walk over to a developer and you say, I'm having trouble with this line of code, it's like you walked over to a Chinese person with a newspaper, if you're not Asian, and you say, you know, I don't understand what this article is about. And they'll just pick it up and go, oh, you know, there was a car accident on Route 2 in Beijing. Oh, you know, thanks. Now I know exactly what's going on. And it may be something where you can get from them something that takes a few minutes, and they're happy to give, and in return, you do something that comes naturally to you, like pick out a font, like say, don't put cyan on a red background because people's eyes are going to vibrate. when you do that, and these are the things that they're not terribly aware of, that you've now given them some part of your knowledge to help their project or their cause. Now, for the most part, you're getting themes that are built that have the ability to modify the CSS, modify type colors, modify background colors, and for the most part, the developers are not getting deep into that. They're giving you the option to do it at the end. But the things that are happening that you, as a designer, will be on the front lines with is usability issues and client issues, because you're most likely going to be the ones talking to the client, or in the client meetings where the clients are, well, I want the site to do this, and I hate this page. Why do you hate it? I don't really know, but I just don't like it. And you're going to be the ones facing that. And part of our jobs is to communicate to the developers what is coming out of the client meetings. And sometimes clients have great ideas and they don't even know it, because they ask a question that to them is, this is so natural, this is what I need, this is what makes my site work. And they're going to tell it to the designers, and they're going to tell it to the themers, because they don't feel comfortable talking to developers because they don't know their language. So the best thing that you can do in order to make your job easier and make Drupal better is to learn how to translate from clientese to Photoshop and Dreamweaver, or whatever it is that you're going to use to edit your site or build your prototypes, or Illustrator, and then take that and translate it into PHP or Drupal functions, or whatever it takes to be able to tell a developer, this is what I want. This particular function returns this, and it's just all over the page, and nobody really needs to see that. Or this module does this, but it doesn't give me enough menus. When I want to find the 6 different things that it produces, I have to go hunting for them. And as a site developer, I want to have that module those menus available to me. And this is where the process gets better, and you open up a dialogue with people who go, wow, that was a good idea, thanks, I'll put that in the module the next time. That makes a whole lot of sense. And gee, for a graphics person, you've got a pretty good handle on this. And now you have the ability to discuss with them what you need. On the flip side, if you're a developer and you need someone to make your sites look good, you do the exact same thing. Hey, let me take a look at your code. Hey, let me see, if I can help you get that straightened out. And by the way, can you help me theme this page? Can you help me? My admin panel for this module is a complete mess. I need documentation with screenshots in it that someone can follow. Can you help me with that? And that's where this interaction is going to grow from in the community. And from my opinion, it's really desperately needed in order for everybody to A, move the platform along, B, be as effective as they can be when building a site, and when they're trying to troubleshoot their issues. Any questions? Come on, just.
Does documentation with screenshots exist?
For some, it's funny because I can probably start with 3 or 4 modules that I know needed right away. MField is one of them, and the gentleman who wrote MField just wrote a book, and the documentation for it, it's easy to get to work, but there's always a hit and miss for me. I'm always putting in a field and then realizing later, I have to take it out and put it in the right way, and so on and so forth. And these are these are people who you can, if you're using that module and you're using it regularly, write them, contact them through this, through Drupal.org. Hey, can I help you out with the documentation on this? Can I put, I'll make some screenshots. I'll write up a piece that explains how it works. And that's a great way to interact with the people who are building the modules. You do that, and I'm betting that when you have a problem, if you need to use that specifically with that module, they will answer your email, and they'll do it with, they'll do it quickly and with good, with a good attitude, and won't feel like they're being bothered, because you're helping them do what they need to do. Any other questions? Just by the way, how many people here are themers? Any developers? Anybody? And for the most part, how long have you been doing theming? I'm just curious.
1 year.
1 year? 3 years. Right, so you're pretty much far down the road if you're doing it for 3. All right, that's just my my take on the problem that really Drupal as a platform needs to be able to move forward and to be able to make it easy for everybody to do their jobs and more effective and less sort of duplication and triplication of effort. That really what we need to do is streamline things and eliminate the bottlenecks and eliminate the overlaps. So thank you for listening. Sorry to get to see most rights. Thank you all.